Book 8. 1. This is the periplus which Joramus, king of the Tyrians, ordered Joramus, priest of Melechethus, to make and to inscribe on a certain pillar in the vestibule of the temple of Melechethus. But he ordered Sidicus, the scribe, to write 4 books and send them to the Sidonians, the Biblians, the Aradians and the Berythians. All the other copies have been lost, and the column lies broken in the ruins of the temple. However, the Biblians book has remained intact to our times in the temple of the goddess Baltes and says the following verbatim. 2. Herbas, son of Barthopa, king of the Tyrians, addressed Joramus, priest of Midian, at a time when the first fruits of the fig trees were in season, in this way. Take a book and a pen and describe all cities and islands and colonies, and the regions of the barbarians, and all the forces of all, and ships and warships and freighters and scythe chariots. For when our ships, sailing to the island of Rashius, finally reached the east, and looked more closely at the furthest limits of the world and the most remote nations, they brought to us knowledge of those things which were hidden from our fathers. For our ancestors, having set out only towards the islands and the west, had no knowledge of the dear region, of which we have prepared knowledge for ourselves in the east. But write all this down for the memory of posterity. Which when he had said, I fell at the king's feet and, returning home, wrote these things. 3. As the king of the Tyrians is more powerful than all the kings, Sir Tyre is considered the greatest and most illustrious of all cities, and the inventor of all the arts. For in that region the chiefs of all were the authors of the nautical business, the companions of Usoi, who were persecuted by Hypsirani. The inhabitants also discovered agriculture, and many other things. The city owes its greatest splendor and power to Abibba, the son of Topher the Siliphian. The king, however, uses these forces. He has 60,000 soldiers in heavy armor, 100 long ships, and innumerable cargo ships, 1,000 escorts, clad in breastplates of solid gold, and 80 chariots. The Tyrians have such an army. The temple of Melechethus, as well as the city, were founded by Melechethus' companions on their return from Tartessus. Surrounding it lie the towns of Hysora, Main, Siliph, Bethobarcas, and Ramase. In the town of Bethobarcas, which is also called Bethataba, Barcas, the son of Sanabal, who won a victory over the giants Jamalcus and Itakos, made his home. The sons of Itec were also captured in this battle, whom Elian Bealdameri sacrificed because of the terrible plague on Mount Orbius, consumed by flames. 4. Sidon is also very famous, and these things are said about it in the Book of Songs. Did the sea cast you out to the shore, or did you descend from the sky? A luminous star. The Mediterranean region is illuminated by your splendor, and the sea shines with cheerful beauty. The king has 40,000 soldiers, 60 long ships, 1,000 spears and 20 chariots. Monachus, Jorf, Moira, Dibon, where the king's children live, and the towns of Nebra and Soate lie around. But in the most dangerous gorges near Soton live the makers of weapons, who derive their origin from the giants, whose name once became famous there, helping Barcidus, the leader of the Sidonians, in the war against the mountaineers, whom, although they could easily have prevented him from crossing with his army, they nevertheless did not prevent him from crossing. 5. The largest city of the Biblians. For it has 20,000 soldiers of heavy armor, 85 long ships, 2,000 spearmen, and 20 chariots. There is also seen the temple of Saturn, who founded the city of the Baltides and the others. But where the Asmonir depart from Byblus, there is a sacred place, full of altars, which is called Bethelion. The Biblians also have under their control the towns of Asmonir, Jasude, Nebite, and Nebra of the Biblians. 6. Sidonius founded Arad, Bimelus, with 8,000 soldiers of heavy armor, 50 long ships, 1,000 spearmen, and 500 archers, and 20 chariots. In the vicinity are the towns of Arbos, Kazaron, Itynna, Delabas, and Asapotia. Between Itynna and Delaba is seen Misabata, oracles made of stones by the god of heaven. 7. The Berythians have 10,000 soldiers of heavy armor, 30 long ships and 1,000 spears, and 40 chariots. The Berythians say that Elian founded this city, and that he named it after his wife Baruth. There are also very splendid temples of Pontus and Astartes. The towns of Arb, Isbaz, Sidrobal, and Bethastaroth lie around it. On the road by which they leave the town of Sidrobal for Byblos, there is a citadel of the Egyptians, which the Egyptians built, who, under the leadership of Sergus, subdued this region. After they were defeated, the virago Adramot destroyed the citadel. 8. The mountaineers support 30,000 soldiers of heavy armor and 2,000 archers. They have neither towns, nor ships, nor chariots, but live in villages. In their borders are the oracles of Baetilia, also established by the god Uranus, in the villages of Gabara, Auris, and Gadra. The most famous are seen on the summit of Mount Zeton, planted with olive trees, above the road by which they set out from the mountainous region to Tyre. On the mountain which is opposite, there is a fortification and rampart, and the citadel is in the village of Momogira, which is situated on the border. 9. King Herbaz commands all these cities, villages, and mountains, and the cities send auxiliary forces to the Tyrians who are preparing for war, 16 myriads of heavy armor and 8,000 soldiers, 6,000 hastadia, 2,500 archers, 325 longships, 180 chariots. But when the war broke out by sea, the islanders sent to Tyre about 70,000 soldiers, 2,600 archers, and 318 long ships. 10. The first is the island of Citium, the largest and most famous, whose inland regions are inhabited by cruel and impious barbarians, and whose language and manners resemble the giants of Lebanon. On the bays the fathers founded towns, villages, and fortresses, the city of Citium of Demerun, which has 10,000 soldiers of heavy armor, 60 ships, and 500 archers. But the islanders do not have chariots in use. In the vicinity are the towns of Ligdana and Gola and many villages. There is also on this island the town of Masuda, which Bimolus Sidonius founded. It has 4,000 soldiers and 20 ships. At Masuda the altar of Cronus is seen on the mountain, always shining, and visible to those who sail past, even if the sea region is cloudy. 11. Those who sail towards the west reach the island of the Rhodians, who, when the war broke out, armed 3,000 soldiers and 10 ships. The Sidonians once founded a city there, which, having been abandoned because of the barrenness of the soil, they now live in many villages. But the most fertile region, which is seen from the opposite, supports a great many people, and there are colonies, of the Sidonians Machira, Supa and Zoara, of the Aradians Sail, of the Tyrians Ozan, Bethamalcro, Masaba and Kazra. The inhabitants of the town of Machira have 5,000 soldiers in heavy armor, and a fleet of 20 ships, of Suphai 2,000 soldiers and 10 ships. Of Zoara 1,000 soldiers in heavy armor and 10 ships. The Salai have 1,500 soldiers and 8 ships. The Ozinai have 2,000 soldiers, the Bethamalcros 1,200, the Masabai 500, the Kazrai 800, and all these towns have a fleet of 15 ships. The Masharai, Supai and Ozanai sail towards the north to many islands and straits, and are accustomed to wage war on the barbarians who live there, sea robbers who use large ships, and ours like them. 12. There is also a large island of the Serates, where the Sidonians founded the city of Mapisa, and the Tyrians a colony, which they named Maprista. They express the port of the Tyrians by this word. For the harbor of the Tyrians is in this place. Mapisa supports 3,000 soldiers and 100 archers. It adorns a fleet of 15 ships. Maprista has 1,040 soldiers and 6 ships. The Serates inhabit the mountains, now already subdued, but in very ancient times, enjoying the dominion of the sea, they established colonies in those regions that look towards the south. For after the natives were driven out of their homeland by the giants, others from the Serates, having taken possession of the towns of the Gazans and Ascalonians, brought the whole tract under their control as far as the borders of the Egyptians. But after these men died the last day, their descendants, having embraced the language of the natives and their whole life and livelihood, completely abstained from the savagery of their fathers, so that they cannot even understand the language which the islanders use. But others from the Serates, having settled the war, returned to their homeland, and even in our own times they observe the customs and laws of their ancestors and the rude language of the islanders. But they do not speak in a vulgar manner, nor do they shout, like the barbarians who inhabit Citium. The Serates were first conquered by Marnotes, the son of Melcalicus, whom the Ascalonites had expelled from the city, who, having settled in Mena, was expelled from the city of Tyre, until he had reduced the Ascalonites, whose seats were in the territories of the Serates, to the power of the Tyrians. Marnotes therefore made an incursion into the island of the Serates, and by war defeated the inhabitants. He then founded a town, to which he gave the name of Ascalon. After the government of which had been with him for a short time, he returned to his homeland without anyone preventing him. This town is called Maprista by the Tyrians, and is a day's journey from Mapisa. The colony of the Mapisai is Gadara, the largest and most famous, where they consecrated a temple to Astarte, surrounded by walls, which is why the city was given its name. For they call Gadara a wall. In the tract opposite, the Gadarians inhabit many villages and castles. The Gadarians have 7,000 young men, 2,000 archers, and a fleet of 30 warships. 13. With favorable winds, they sailed for 4 days to Mazauris, a most famous island, which supports many people. The Tyrians and Sidonians founded 6 towns there: Nasbum Melicathi, Jamnia, Atron, Malcuba, Ophala and Maraba, and many villages. All these have about 11,000 soldiers and 38 ships. Leaving Maraba, the next day the ship called at the island of Mylites, where there is no town, but villages, in which are found 2,000 men who can bear arms, and 15 ships. This island is full of Astartes Mylites altars. Setting out from this island, they very quickly arrived at Maphil, inhabited by the Aradians and Biblians and others, who, having inhabited this region and founded 5 towns, were defeated by the native wild and warlike people. They moved to this place and founded the city of Maphil, to which, because they were safe there from their enemies, they gave this name. The city has 4,000 soldiers and 36 ships. Maphila is situated in Tenga, a region which is wide open, but is deserted to men because of the scarcity of water and the heat of the sun. It is much further from Maphila than the cities of the Artesians, the nearest town of Ursiphonia, because of the delaying north winds. 4. Having first set out for Mazauris, they sail for many days towards Ursiphonia, where there are 4 colonies, which have 12,000 soldiers of heavy armor and a fleet of 25 ships. The Sidonians once increased the forces of these colonies when war seemed to be coming, not against the natives, who are neither great in number nor warlike, but against the Artesians. In this tract is Libnus, a mountain sacred to Melcathus, whose traces are also seen there near the road. Opposite Ursiphonia are the islands of Siton and Gadila, where the town is adjacent to the strait, from which they sail in 10 days to that which is the strait to Tartessus, having overcome the island of Liathana and the region of Abibica. 14. But those forces which the Tyrian Herbers supports by land and sea are not to be despised at all. For he has altogether 250,000 heavy armored soldiers and spearmen and archers, 643 long ships, 180 chariots, and great wealth. For when war breaks out, the cities send their forces to the Tyrians to help them, but in time of peace they pay them tribute. 15. The Artesians, who originated from Melcathus, and whose capital faces west, are allied to the Tyrians. Their kingdom is in the hands of Nausitanus, the son of Charon, who has the largest army and many ships, both freighters and longships. The multitude of men is divided into 5 largest and most famous cities, and they inhabit many villages. The regions adjacent to the rivers are very fertile, but the mountainous ones abound in silver and gold, especially the mines which they reach in the villages of Ardiabe and Ophala. Tartessus, which the Phoenicians called Tarsinus, is adjacent to the strait and the ocean. The northern ocean is unnavigable because of the rough waves, the southern, because the shores are deserted to men. There is the promontory of Tiborcepha. In this sea, towards the west, are the outermost islands of the Imerchesines, Hyaza and Hyrizima, Mazariza and Igidula, once inhabited by men, but when they were stricken by a plague, and did not appease the gods, the inhabitants died, so that in our times they are deserted. They are about 10 days' journey from Tiborcepha. 16. This, then, is the description of the islands. In the neighborhood of the Tyrians dwell the Serates, Jews, Egyptians, Arabs, Damascenes, and Amathus, allied by league with Herba. The Nile flows through Egypt, and on the 17th day, sailing up the river, they arrive at the city of the prince, where many Ethiopian slaves are found, born in the southern regions. Of a black complexion, but otherwise the Ethiopians and Egyptians are alike in manners and appearance. The Ethiopians dwell in the extreme south, but the northern regions are inhabited by Armenians, Phrygians, and Lydians, and the extreme north by the Gambri, Amadonians, and Titans. The Gambri and Amadonians enjoy the mines of bronze. The Titans, men of enormous size, are very fierce, and a large part of their bodies is exposed. They bring white horses from Media, to which they give divine honors. The Titans dwell around a large lake and are about 20 days' journey from the Medes. The prince, Stradabadus Machareus, sailed to them. Now the barbarians who live on the islands are blocking the way for the Machaerians. Towards the east the Babylonians live, as do the Medes and Ethiopians. The city of the Babylonians is great and splendid. Media excels in the multitude of white horses. Ethiopia, however, is sandy by the sea and lacks water, and in the inland region there are mountains. But of those regions which lean towards the east, the furthest is the island of Rashius, to which the long ships of the Herbi set sail.